Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, divisions remain as South Africa's ANC party looks to reconcile with some of its rivals as officials slog through more critical meetings aimed at finding a way forward from last week's election trouncing. Also, for the first time, Zanzibar commemorates the abolition of slavery. The island is part of Tanzania and was a key stopping-off point for Arab slavers across East Africa for hundreds of years. And Somaliland's basketball trailblazers have some pretty clear goals in sight. The Hargeisa girls are the first of a maiden generation of keen female players of the sport in the breakaway territory, at the heart of a sovereignty struggle with Somalia. But first, in South Africa, the MK party said that it is engaging with the ANC's coalition talks. MK, which is backed by former President Jacob Zuma, is arguably the ANC's most bitter rivals, but all options are being considered as the former liberation movement scrambles to work out which partners it can share power with and form a government. It was punished for its patchy record in last week's elections and has spent days in discussion. And Wenzel gets us up to speed.
South Africa has been on tenterhooks during just about a week of ANC deliberations. The governing party, for the first time in 30 years, no longer firmly in its governing party position, and discussions around the nation as heated as it could be, even just discussing the options of a coalition government, a government of national unity, or even an ANC minority government. Some voters think it would be good for the ANC to go forward as a minority party and work hard, with ministers and MPs earning their salaries and earning back the trust of the people. But no matter how the ANC goes forward into this new era of governance, it will have to live with its choices, and voters will be waiting to see if there is an alleviation of the larger issues: high unemployment, deepening poverty, and a not large enough and not functioning power grid. Meanwhile, the IEC released the list of MPs, which shows that after the ANC lost 71 seats, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation Naledi Pandor and Police Minister Becky Cele, among others, will not be returning to their posts. The removal of Cele will be seen as a cause for celebration by many who see him as an incompetent police minister, while Naledi Pandor is seen as a firm, calm presence and the face of South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ, and has many believing that despite her announcing prior to the elections that she won't stay, they believe President Ramaphosa should beg her to stay.
And Wenzel there for us in Cape Town. Now, Sudanese pro-democracy activists say that over 104 people in the village in the centre of the country have been killed in a single day by RSF fighters. The paramilitary forces on one side of Sudan's brutal conflict reportedly attacked Wad al-Noura in Al Jazeera state, and the bloodshed sits amongst the estimated tens of thousands of people killed across the country since conflict broke out between the RSF and the army last April. The RSF claims to have targeted 3 army camps around Wad al-Noura. A collective called the Madani Resistance Committee accused their alleged attackers of trying to shift blame onto the victims. Rwanda's president will face at least 2 challenges in next month's elections. The 2 men named in a provisional list published on Thursday were also the only candidates allowed to run in the last polls. President Paul Kagame has won 3 elections since 2000 and was de facto ruler for 6 years before that, ever since his RPF forces ended the 1994 genocide. Our Clément Di Roma tells us more.
Rwandan President Paul Kagame will indeed be standing for a re-election on July 15th. The country's Electoral Commission has confirmed the application of the leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, who has been in power for over 20 years. Out of the 8 other would-be presidential candidates, only 2 applications have been so far approved for this provisional list. First is Frank Habineza, head of the Green Party, the only opposition party authorized in Rwanda. When he ran in the 2017 election, Habineza got less than 1% of votes. He hopes to do better this time and also aims to get more of his people-elected seats in a parliament currently dominated by Kagame's RPF. The second approved candidate is independent civil servant Philip Mpayimana, who also ran in 2017. Finally, the 6 hopefuls whose candidacy have still not been approved have until June 14th to to rework and resubmit their applications. This includes Diane Rigara, a critic of the regime whose application was invalidated in the last elections. Authorities say that this time around she's missing several documents and has fallen short of some of the 600 signatures she needs to submit a file. Two other previously convicted opposition members, Victoire Ingabire and Bernard Ntaganda, have been temporarily barred from running by the local judiciary.
Clement Di Roma there for us. Now, Egypt is the world's largest importer of wheat, with over 5 million metric tons being brought in every year. Now, that goes towards the bread that many in the country rely on for sustenance. But faced with rising global wheat prices and plummeting currency, this month the government raised the price of subsidised bread for the first time in 3 decades. It's a move that's horrified many Egyptians. Our team tells us more.
Fewer people are queuing these days outside bakeries in Cairo. On the 1st of June, the subsidized price of loaves, which 70% of the population relies, increased 400%.
It's much more expensive. Before, we got 20 loaves of bread for £1. Now, we only get 5.
Egypt is caught in an unprecedented economic crisis that has made prices skyrocket. The government is making cost-cutting changes to comply with the requirements of the International Monetary Fund loans. The rise in the price of bread is such an unpopular and sensitive issue that no baker wanted to speak to us on camera openly.
When they raised the price for bread, suppliers raised the price of wheat. I have to choose. Either accept this or stop working. What can I do?
Everyone at this agricultural conference is also talking about the price hike. Many are particularly worried that it will mean many Egyptians will struggle more to access nutritious food.
Definitely the increase in the prices is going to increase poverty in Egypt. Where the challenges for people's nutrition, I think, are much more about what's going on with the prices for high-value foods, for protein, for fruits and vegetables. Not so much about just making sure that they have sufficient calories, but making sure that they have nutritious diets.
With a public debt representing more than 80% of the GDP, Egyptians expect more austerity measures. According to official figures, 30% of the population lives under the poverty line.
Well, on Thursday, for the first time, Zanzibar commemorated the abolition of slavery. The island's part of Tanzania and was a key stopping-off point for Arab slavers across East Africa. At one point, domestic slavery is thought to have expanded to the point that 2/3 of the population were enslaved. Trade in human life across the Indian Ocean was big business for hundreds of years, and Zanzibar was at its heart. Our Bastien Renouy attended the day of remembrance of the suffering caused by the trade.
I'm on Kelele Square. Kelele is a Swahili word meaning the noise of all the slaves who were gathered here in early 19th century. This was a huge slave market. It's unclear how many slaves were sold in Zanzibar, but at least hundreds of thousands. Zanzibari slave traders were going to the African continent. They were capturing men, women and children. Here, they were either exploited in cloth plantations or they were sold to other traders. Most of the merchants were Arabs coming from Oman, and a smaller proportion were Europeans bringing their slaves to Reunion Island, Mauritius or the Seychelles.
A day like this is very special in the calendar of bringing together global harmony, of bringing together the whole context of heritage in terms of awareness, in terms of education, in terms of cultural cohesion, in terms of bringing forth the principles of peace and harmony within our communities.
So why did they choose that date? Because on the 6th of June 1873, Zanzibar officially abolished the slave trade, but it's important to mention that it persisted till 1909. Now local authorities say they would like to organize this event every year. Their ultimate goal is to organize the event across the Indian Ocean. They would like to invite every island who were involved in the slave trade, but they will have to find a common date. Of course, the local authorities would like to organize it on the 6th of June, but Reunion Island is organizing the commemorations on the 20th of December and Mauritius on the 1st of February.
Bastien Renouy there for us in Zanzibar. And finally, Somaliland's first all-girls basketball team are hoping to put their country on the map with their skills on the court. It's at the heart of a territorial dispute with Somalia, but the Hargeisa girls, which were founded in 2018, already have a pretty hefty online following, and that's led to enough other female teams springing up so that they could create an all-girls league. Sophie Lamotte has more.
Young women dribbling through the courts and shooting hoops. A most unusual sight in conservative Somaliland, northern Somalia, at the bottom of the UN gender equality ranking. Without help from local authorities or her school, Asfa Omar took it upon herself to bring girls together on this court.
Like we were 7 of us, but then afterwards we started becoming bigger, and now we're almost 30 girls playing in that basketball court under the name of the Hargeisa Basketball Girls.
Since she founded the squad in 2018, other female teams have sprung up. They now play in an all-girls league, challenging the conservative social attitudes and religious beliefs in Somaliland.
We're being told that we cannot play. Girls are not supposed to be playing, not only basketball, but any kind of sport.
Her dream is to one day represent Somaliland, but that's easier said than done. Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991, but was never formally recognised. The group is now determined to put their team and their country on the map.
Somaliland is looking for their recognition, and we believe that we could be part of bringing the recognition from this by wearing the flags, by talking about our country.
Somaliland's sovereignty came into sharp relief in January when local authorities said they would grant landlocked Ethiopia access to the Red Sea in return for recognition as an independent country, sparking a diplomatic row with Somalia's federal government.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.